What's up, everybody? Welcome to State of the Nation, the Athletics Raiders podcast. Jimmy Durkin and Vic Tafur getting ready to sign off on 2018, the 2018 season, the 2018 year. It's New Year's Eve, and we are hanging out a little bit of a longer day than we expected, especially for you who got up early to fly back from Kansas City. And it was not just a regular locker clean-out day. The Raiders introduced their new general manager, Mike Mayock, a guy we all know well from the NFL Draft, the NFL Network. And just overall, Vic, your impressions of the decision to hire Mike Mayock and then his introductory press conference.
I think it makes sense. I think obviously Mayock killed the press conference. He's a broadcaster. I mean, he's going to dominate in that kind of form. Both he and Jon have a history on TV, so he came across very well, I thought. And as far as just the hire itself, I think it makes sense because of it's a weird dynamic, this job. Now, obviously, Gruden's calling the shots, but you want a guy with some draft expertise, which Mayock has. But if there's a history those two guys have, they can kind of talk to each other and kind of respect each other's opinions. At the same time, everyone knows the final call is Jon's, but I think there's a respect there. I think there'll be a give and take. I think that's going to be good. And like I said, it's kind of this is Mayock's shot, really, to get this kind of, he's 60 years old, been broadcasting for a while. I thought about doing this for a while. Interviewed here with Al Davis for a personnel job 11 years ago with the Redskins, I think, last year. So he's always thought about doing this. This is really, I think, probably his last shot to do it. And it's not going to be a perfect opportunity. Like, if they do really well, Gruden will get more of the credit, and I think he knows that. But it's a way for him to come in, learn a job on the ropes, be with a guy who was his friend for 20 years, and kind of have some fun doing it.
Yeah, I've said for a while now that the big key here was getting in somebody that Gruden will listen to, getting somebody who's smart, Gruden will listen to and respect, and there can be some back and forth conversation about players, about trades, about drafts and all that. And the key is, how do you find a guy who's good at all that, but also won't come in and expect to have full personnel power? Well, a guy like Mayock, who really doesn't have the background of a guy that's worked for NFL organizations. I mean, this is the way you kind of do that, is you go a little bit outside of the box with a guy like him that what he talked about is that, yes, I haven't worked for an NFL team, but I've prepared for these drafts like I'm the GM for all 32 teams. So he hasn't scouted for a team, but he's scouted every player that's come out of the draft in recent years. So he's done all the kind of work that a scout would do, a lot of the work that a GM would do in terms of setting a draft board and ranking it, moving it around. And now he gets to put those skills to the test and see if he can develop a good relationship, continue a good relationship with Jon Gruden, and see what it can do to build an NFL team, a real team now. Yeah,
I'm kind of touching on this in my story a little bit, but I think it's also important to say that it's a fresh start in terms of this roster, in terms of because I think Jon respected Reggie McKenzie. That obviously didn't work, and Reggie got fired, but I think there was a respect there. I think they definitely thought Reggie had some good ideas, but when you have that history of the guys who already here you've drafted, who Jon doesn't like why the hell would you draft that guy and that guy? So and then Reggie was in charge, and now he's not. So both sides come in with a really weird dynamic. I think they tried to make it work. It didn't. But now you got two guys who are friends, and it's clearly Jon's show. He's going to show Mayock how it works, and Mayock will bring in some ideas about the draft. And then, so it's a better chance of a convergence here, of a healthy dynamic than there was, I think, with the last year.
What'll be interesting is guys that when they differ on an opinion. We know that Gruden and his staff came in and wasn't very high on Carl Joseph. I think got higher on him, obviously, as the season went on. And you look back to in the draft that year, you find quotes of Mayock saying he's a poor man's Earl Thomas, was very high on him. Although there's also other quotes where he didn't think there was a safety worth taking at that spot. But so that's where it'll be interesting to see how they kind of converge on those opinions. And that's what's kind of a weird dynamic in all this, is that there's so many Mayock opinions that are public knowledge. He's a guy that has, we all do those draft conference calls with him before the draft every year. And he's got so many, draft opinions, so many opinions out there that, obviously, Reggie McKenzie has a million opinions on guys that we don't know about. We know about almost all of it.
Yeah, Mayock loves to talk. Even those conference calls with the reporters every year, they would go 2-3 hours. And they didn't have to. They could be a half hour, 45 minutes. Okay, we're done. But he wants to keep going, and they go on forever. Whereas Reggie's more kind of a quiet kind of guy. Doesn't really want to give you too much of what you want. But so I think I'm interested to see how that works as far as the media and talking about these draft picks and talking about the draft, and that make sure these guys are always on the same page. But I guess they go back. It's been 20 years, John said, and I mean, Mayock also knows Gunther for 20 years back from their Philly days. So there's a history there. And Mark Davis said he's talked to Mayock over the years on the sidelines. Hey, man, I really respect you, and that someday I'd like to work together. So this is, definitely in the works, for a while. So I just think that it's a gamble because he has no experience, and you have no idea how it's going to work when he wants you to learn these things. But I get it. It makes sense, I think. I think it's exciting for fans who know Mike Mayock and respect his work.
Yeah, he had a good answer ready for me. I asked him, because all of your draft opinions are public knowledge, and he immediately like, you going to bring up some negative ones? And, no. But I asked him kind of what's that going to be like for you as you walk into a locker room and, hey, that guy was ripping me, that guy didn't like me. And for him, that's not something that's going to be new now to him. As he explained, the 3 years he spent, 2011 through 13, doing the Thursday night football games for the NFL Network, that's what production meetings were like. He walked in one time, was doing an Eagles Seattle game, and goes into the Seahawks locker room, and Earl Thomas is like, oh, man, I need to take a picture with you and my mom. Gives him a big hug because he was, really in Earl's corner, called him the number one safety out that year. And then Shady McCoy sees him later that night at the game, and he's like, "You're the guru, man. You had me ranked number 4, and what's?" And so he says that he's kind of had that experience already. So he might have some more of it as he gets to know some of the guys on this roster. But he sounds pretty prepared for it.
Yeah, and I think the timing of this all was kind of a quick trigger because I think the season ended yesterday. Usually they have a chance to talk with Gruden about the coach about the previous year, some bigger picture questions, many things he didn't want to touch on during the season. But today that was kind of hard to do because Mayock's on stage with Mark and John, and Mayock's family sitting in the front row, all his kids, his wife. So I don't want to ask too much about hey, what happened here? So it was weird as far as that goes. But I can see why. I mean, obviously Mark Davis and Jon Gruden want to turn the page. It was a horrible season in many ways. There's so much uncertainty about what's going to happen next year. Let's focus on something positive. This is a positive for them, a new beginning with the GM, and that's where they're going to go with this.
Yeah, I mean, for them, I think the ability to look ahead is really kind of what they've wanted everybody to focus on for several months now. And now, tomorrow, the calendar is going to hit 2019, and it is. We can finally look ahead. It's time. I know we still like to sometimes go back and review some stuff, but hey, it's fine. Okay, it's on to 2019 and maybe greener pastures.
At some point, I want Gruden to answer the question when he decided he wasn't going to try and contend this year. He has never answered that question.
He's never going to.
And Mark Davis never touched that one either. When did he decide this was not the year it was going to happen? They'll go backwards and take a step backwards first. And today I thought I was going to do that, but I couldn't do it with. No. Maybe, like you said, it's probably not going to happen now. But I'm sure John wants to move on, and I know Mark does. So.
Well, you're going to have time to hang out with Gruden quite a bit. You're going to have the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama now with him coaching one of those staffs.
My first time in Alabama. I've been told get some collard greens. That's the place to go for collard. I'm not really a collard greens guy, but that's what I was told. So I think it'll be fun. Obviously, Mayock will be the star of the show, and Jon Gruden will be also he's such a character that people are going to eat him up. So it's a part of a new start. It's turning the page and look at these young draft prospects and guys. It's a great thing. You're with these guys for 5-6 days, so you will have a good chance to know these players. And I know when Dennis Allen did it, didn't work out that well, but he talked about how these players really made a connection. Unfortunately for him, it was with Tyler Wilson and C.O. Moore. Ideally, the Rays have better connections this year with better players, but I get why coaches want to do it because it's a chance to really immerse yourself with these players and get to know them inside and out.
Well, another question, a question that you asked, and it's an important kind of technical question, is because we all know that Mayock is the draft guy and that he's going to be a big help there. And, he was asked earlier before you asked, what's your experience with the pro personnel? And he said really over the last 7-8 years, he has been studying that more. That was kind of some advice he got that, hey, if you really want to take what you're doing to the next level, you got to not just be pigeonholed as a college guy. But you asked him, okay, in terms of trades, you asked Jon Gruden this, in terms of trades, who's going to be taking the trade calls? Because, they've obviously made some big trades. They could still, like Gruden said today that their phone lines are open. They're ready to talk more trades. Gruden took joke with this answer. I know some people are going to call it not a joke, but basically said if it's a bad trade, it's on Mayock. If it's a good trade, it's on him. But
I mean, it's probably true. Actually.
It's probably
true. It was funny. I laughed, but I mean, I think it'll probably be neither one. I would think it'd be somebody else. In the
they got to have somebody else to blame.
I'll see John on the phone with someone, in the next month or so. Hey,
I mean, I think when it comes down to like making a decision on a trade, all
definitely.
But there's somebody else has got to be the in between guy to handle
as far
those
as the
kind of
preliminary
calls.
call, like, hey man, what are your thoughts on this guy? Are you guys looking at trading? You guys are happy with this guy? Like, so Leonard Fournette. Hey, what will it take to get Leonard Fournette? Obviously, he's going to be on his way out in Jacksonville. What would it take? That'd be a call I would make. I'd be curious. But I think
Antonio Brown.
I think he's phenomenal. Yeah, I think both those guys are phenomenal.
Roger Carr was already calling for the Raiders to go after him.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. You asked about Derek Carr and Mayock kind of punted.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't like to get into like overanalyzing answers. It could just be simply that his way. I'm not going to analyze any players on this roster right now. But basically he said, that's part of the studying that I have to do, is that I have to study these guys. And I mean,
that's fair, but if there's one guy,
the quarterback,
answer that question that way, it'd be him. I'm sure they prepare for these things. I'm sure they sat down, him and John and the great Will Kiss, and discuss what they're going to say to these questions. I'm sure Derek Carr came up, and you could have gone a different way with an answer.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting. And not a big deal, but
yeah, it's not something to blow up into. Oh, they're gonna get rid of him. They're gonna trade him. But
I mean, having a new GM does give you a little wiggle room with Derek as far as his future. Now John can say, well, we've decided that we're going to go this way. So John's been totally behind Derek the last few months and says, hey, I love him. But there's still something there that may not be a right fit for him and the Raiders. So, I mean, and especially with the contract and just the fact that they are rebuilding. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, there was that interesting stat that was out there yesterday. The top 6 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL all did not make the playoffs. And I think combined for 29 wins or whatever. It was not a great showing for. I mean, obviously that includes a guy like Garoppolo, who basically didn't play this year, but
Aaron Rodgers, right?
Aaron Rodgers, yeah. Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford.
Most teams will still want Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan.
Yeah,
so I think it was just
Matthew
a fluke year.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm sure people on Twitter have been bugging us all year, like, yeah, you can't pay all that money to a quarterback and Khalil Mack. You can't do it. So they're like, yeah, see. They're happy.
Yeah, I mean, if a guy like Tom Brady ever accepted top dollar, I mean, he would be the highest paid quarterback. I mean, that's just he's a different guy. It helps when you've got like a supermodel wife that makes more money than you.
That's pretty nice. Yeah. Plus, it was crazy. I think there's 7 teams made the playoffs this year. They weren't in it last year. It was a really bizarre year in football this year. So I think it's hard to really take any overwhelming, huge general themes that will serve you well going forward. Yeah.
Another area from today's press conference is, asking Gruden about where does this roster need to upgrade? Because I mean, it is plain and clear that this roster needs a lot of upgrades. I mean, it needed upgrades going into last season, and it needs a lot more going into now. And he kind of addressed that, and basically, it's they need to find pass protection, they need to find pass rushers. I mean, those are 2 big, huge areas for them.
Yeah, I like the way he said it too. It's like they match up with the Chiefs. He took yesterday's game and said they beat us in here, they beat us in the pass rush, beat us in pass protection. We also need speed. Our speed's the issue. Like just ways that you saw yesterday, which were glaring deficiencies against the Chiefs. I think that's a good way to look at it. Those 3 things are going to be definitely priorities for them in this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that first-round pick. I mean, if that number 4 overall pick is not an edge rusher or some kind of a pass rusher, maybe it's, an interior pass rusher in Quinnen Williams. If it's not somebody that can get after the quarterback, I'd be pretty surprised.
Yeah, or having someone super fast. Maybe maybe if there's a game breaker you can add on offense and a receiver. But I'm not sure what they can do as far as the line goes. He mentioned pass protection, but maybe a guard if they want to lose one. But I mean, I think at this point you're pretty much committed to your 2 tackles, and Donald Penn, if he comes back, maybe as a 3rd guy. So I'm not sure you're going to draft a tackle at any point.
Yeah, it'd be hard to draft. I mean, you can obviously upgrade at right tackle from Brandon Parker, but do you really draft a right tackle in the first round? That's a pretty tough ask.
Especially when he gave Cable a pretty good endorsement. He gave all the guys endorsement. He gave Gunther an endorsement. He gave Greg Olsen said he loves the scheme that Cable and Greg Olsen implemented, the diverse scheme. So those guys are all coming back. So if Cable is in fact coming back, he was the guy behind getting Parker and Miller. So those guys are supposedly going to put on some weight this offseason, get better, take a next step. The insurance, I think, is Donald Penn, so I don't see a tackle being anywhere in their plans as far as the draft goes.
And you don't take a guard high. No. I mean, you maybe in one of the.
You take Gabe, round 3?
Right, round
that's
3.
That's the highest you can go for a guard, and you can get a really good one in round 3. So I mean.
But I mean, they definitely need to add offensive weapons because you look at probably their best offensive weapon this year was Jared Cook, and don't really expect that he's going to come back. Well, now we've got a GM, so we've got somebody for Jon Gruden to show the tape to.
That's right. I feel bad for Jared, man. Jared had a really good year, and the way it ended for him, as far as that play yesterday where he didn't give max effort in the play, and you kind of, you can see he quit in a route, but it looked like he quit in a route. Gruden tried to say it was he thought it was a running play, but
5 wide.
You watch the highlights; it's clearly not the case.
Derek Carr running a quarterback.
There's only 5 wides. When Derek hikes the ball, Jared's looking right at him into the empty backfield, and so clearly, I don't know what happened there, but it was bad. And Jared didn't talk after the game. Didn't talk today. He didn't come to the locker room.
He kind of looked into the locker room, saw all of us, and kept on going. That was pretty much a theme of the locker room today.
It was a very empty locker room. But for Jared, I thought it was probably his best year. He was so happy to have a role, like a prominent role in offense. He and Gruden clicked. But I don't get the sense he'll be back next year. I thought it was a really sad way for him to go out after having such a great year. And really the best weapon Carr had all year. Carr had so many injuries, but always could count on Jared until yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder who Derek Carr is going to have to throw the ball to next year. I mean, obviously Jordy Nelson is going to be back. That was confirmed. That they turned some of his roster bonus for next year into a guarantee. They did that with a few guys, basically locked them in for coming back. So he's coming back, but he's not.
They have the 4 tight ends. Ideally, that Darren Waller can have a bigger role. They got Derek Carrier, who was flash at times in the preseason, and they had Paul Butler, who they like in the practice squad, and Lee Smith, who's got his role. So those guys are there. So you got to either draft a game-breaking receiver or sign somebody. But I think that's definitely, like you said, one of the bigger needs to have, and just get the offense back up to speed.
And we'll see what they do at running back. Obviously, Doug Martin finished the year very strong, back-to-back 100-yard games. What does that mean for next year? I don't know.
Yeah, Doug Martin's a weird guy. I mean, people don't really get fired up for him, but he did. I think he did what he could ask him to do. Yeah. I mean, he had a good year, so I don't know. And then Chris Warren, the guy everyone thinks about being a future guy as far as having a big role. And if they're back in Oakland, will Marshawn come back? I mean, I would never have thought Marshawn would be back for second year with Gruden, but I think Gruden was surprised just by how well he played, how well he fit in with everyone. He was really a team player this year, came into camp in shape. So if they are back in Oakland and Marshawn does want to play, I wouldn't be surprised if he came back in some role. I think a similar role he had this year. Kind of you have a rotation of backs, but otherwise I'd say he's not going to be back. I think it had to be in Oakland. But Jalen Richard, Gruden said good things about him, but I'm not sure he's number one back. I know his dad will get mad on Twitter at me for saying that, but I think he's clearly a great role-playing running back in the system. I think that's probably going to be his role going forward.
Well, I mean, come on. If they move to London, Beast Mode can expand the brand in London. He had the pop-up shop there. He's all about expanding the brand, so he can go play for them in London.
He's not big on travel, though. I mean, you tell Beast Mode, hey, man, you're going to spend 4 straight weeks in London. I'm not sure that's going to be...
It's 4 straight weeks of a pop-up shop.
But the food will be... He's like... I think
that's the one thing about...
Those rumors are getting stronger, and I think they're hilarious, but I will say this.
Ray Glazer, man. NFL reporter Ray Glazer, he is locked into everything.
He is locked in, but... I mean, the NFL wants a guinea pig, and they'll probably throw some money at the Raiders to do it. I don't know how it's possible as far as logistically, like as far as the union giving it the okay because of the wear and tear. Would you have players stay in a dorm for 4 weeks at a time? Where are they going to live? The cost of living? I just don't know how any of that would work, but I do believe...
Who pays for all that? I mean, is the NFL going to help pay for that because they
really
want to?
I think the NFL would pretty much do anything they can to get like at least a real solid experiment going. Like, let's really see how this works. Even though I thought the Raiders wouldn't be their first choice, maybe the only choice, the only team that's possibly even thinking about doing it if the price was right. But I still think it's far-fetched. But I've been told that it's not as ridiculous as it sounds. That actually there is someone pushing this agenda, and the Raiders are listening to at least a little bit. They're not saying no. And they're like, they don't keep all their options open.
Yeah, the Raiders are listening to everybody.
Exactly.
I mean, if I offered in my backyard, they'd listen.
You got a big backyard? Is it nice?
Not really.
It's probably not then. But is there tailgating options? Access? Whatever?
I've got a nice built-in barbecue. I can set up a nice tailgate area in my backyard.
That'd be nice.
Got a little swing that I built, so we can tailgate back there. And there's a park down the street that we can go. I can draw some chalk out there, so we can tailgate in my backyard. They can play down there. A great commute for me to work. It'd be awesome.
All right, let's do it. Let's pitch it to Mark.
But I mean, Mark did not want to address that today. Was asked. I mean, and it's one of those things that's like, okay, we understand that people will say, well, that's not the right time to ask that, and that's not the right time to ask about this season. But obviously, you're not going to get Gruden, because he's doing the Senior Bowl. You will see him in a few weeks, but normally at this point, you wouldn't get Gruden until the Combine. That's
Right.
almost 2 months away. Mark Davis doesn't do any designated media. It's just kind of this. And so these are the kind of opportunities that you have to ask these questions. So he was asked about, did you have any updates? And and what he said was, I'll reiterate that I just want to wait till the season's over, which. Mark, the season is over now. But basically, they don't want to say anything until they have it locked up. And, I think they do need to make a decision here pretty soon, though.
Yeah, he's not comfortable up on a stage with the microphone. He's not going to improvise. He has a script, the things he's going to say, his talking points. If he gets too far off that, he's not going to do well. So he knows that. So I think he tried to say it in his own way that he's not going to answer that question. It was awkward, but. Also had an awkward thing with the Rooney Rule about the Reggie McKenzie. He has this weird thing. He brings up how looking for a redhead freckle guy. He's done it twice now.
It's not a good joke, and
I guess he has enough power. People can't tell him, "Hey, that's not a good joke. That's not good." But he said it twice now. So, but that probably that's probably the last time. But just but the Rooney Rule, they checked the box. Again, it seemed like Mayock was their guy, and they interviewed 5 or 6 guys. They won't say who they were, but
this wasn't as obvious as Gruden last year, where Gruden was the only guy.
Right, but just to give them the history that hearing Mayock and Gruden talk about their history together, and MD talking to him, but this is clearly the guy probably their first choice to replace Reggie.
Yeah, and I guess you talk about MD not being a good guy in terms of improvising. This year's obviously been a lot of awkwardness just in terms of everybody analyzing weird things that Gruden says, and even go back to the day that they trade Khalil and Reggie's line about why they traded him to the Bears, which was a bad line and something he probably should have never said. I guess that's one thing that bringing in Mayock, we kind of thought that Gruden's media experience would help in terms of him being polished in front of the microphone. It didn't help as much as I thought it would, but I think with Mayock, just because, Mayock's the guy that, like you talked about, to sit on the phone for 3 hours and he doesn't know the questions. Right. And that's in those settings. He really doesn't know who he's going to be asked about. Right. I'm sure he's got a set of notes in front of him a little bit there, but he's pretty rapid fire with those questions and answers. He's good on his feet, and I think that'll be a nice help. It'll be a nice help for Gruden, especially that he's Reggie was not a guy that loved being out in front of the media. Now he's got a GM that I think will be more comfortable kind of taking on that role, and will be okay handling some of that kind of out front role that a GM sometimes needs to take on.
Yeah, and talking to Mayock over the years, and again today you saw it, he has a good, quick self-filter. He's not going to say the wrong thing. He'll catch himself in his mind. He's saying, you think him what he's going to say, says it in a way where he doesn't really get in trouble much. It's for the things he says. He's definitely keeps close to the vest. He's opinionated, but always in a good way. I think Jon sometimes gets in trouble because he kind of seems to ramble at times and tries to be funny, tries to make a point to himself maybe, or just to remind himself what he's trying to say. That's why he gets in trouble. I think he talks a little too much just for the sake of talking. But they both love to talk, so I think that'll be a good dynamic for us.
And I think a goal for the Raiders really for 2019 is just to show, and now that you have a GM that Gruden is on board with, they need to show that they've got a plan, and that'll really be the big thing for 2019. Show that you've got, they don't have to be uber competitive in 2019, but the goal now is let's show that these guys have a plan in place to kind of get this thing figured out, and that's what we'll see over the next few months is how they can handle the Senior Bowl, how they handle the Combine, how they handle the draft, and if they can, free agency, of course, is going to be huge to see what kind of plan they can build going forward, and that'll be where you'll be able to figure out if this partnership might work.
Well, obviously, my question is, it all falls on Gruden. Gruden's the guy. Does he have a plan? Do you think he knows what?
It hasn't seemed like it so far.
No, I don't think he does. I'm not sure he's decided if he wants to have this long rebuilding process, or if he's going to I got almost $80 million in free agent money. I'm going to get some studs,
and I got draft capital.
We're back at it. We'll see. I guess in free agency what he's thinking, but I think he changed his mind often. I think he kind of goes back and forth. I think he we came in here we're going to win for Oakland, we're going to contend, and at some point, we're not going to contend. We got to get rid of some of the guys. We're going to take a step backwards, and even in some of the games, there were games where you could see. Early on, because it was the injuries to O-line, but there were times he waves the white flag. We're no longer trying to win this game. Yesterday, we're down 21-0. They start punting. They're down 28-0. They punt 4 times in a row. If you're really if you're trying to win, not punting down 28-0. I mean, what's the point? So I think that happened a lot this year where I think there were times where I know he gets mad about the tanking thing, and then he's always trying to win. He loves the team's effort, but there's clearly another level to his thinking where he's not always trying to win these games.
Yeah, I mean, there's times where it's the goal becomes we got to protect our guys. We got to protect Derek Carr. I mean, because there are games that you could see. There were games where the offensive line held up fairly well and Carr was able to do some things. But there were games where you could just see, I mean, Carr had no chance.
Yeah. I think yesterday, like, he took a lot of heat for that, a couple of his picks, and didn't play well, but I know a lot of people jump off the bandwagon, Carr, he's the problem again after he played so well the last 2 months. But, again, you got to consider who he's throwing the ball to. I mean, his guys are Jordan Nelson, Marcel Aitman. There's no speed. There's no one going. There's no Tyreek Hill, even close to that. There's no one going down deep, getting open. Even the tight ends. Jared Cook has been his guy. And Jared's kind of disappeared the last few weeks. So I'm not sure what happened, but maybe he had a little nagging injury. But, so Carr, I mean, the O-line's been a little better of late, but in terms of the talent around him, it's not really been there for him. So I think it's going to be hard to really judge just how much of a strides he's made this year.
Yeah, I mean, we could a couple of years from now be pointing to this year as Carr surviving and this being a big theme of how he was able to kind of rebuild his career. He survived this year. I mean, I think he survived this year and put up career highs in passing yards. Obviously, first time going over 4,000 yards. The completion percentage was high. Obviously, if not as much touchdowns as you would like, but I mean, he was productive at times. There was other times where he was a little bit frustrating. Obviously, and not having the protection. I mean, taking 52 sacks they took as a team was a lot more than he's ever been used to. So it was an interesting year. I mean, you look back, and we're now we're exactly a year away from when they fired Jack Del Rio down there in LA.
They didn't fire him. He fired himself. Don't forget
that. I think he fired himself publicly. I would imagine somebody informed him.
I'm just being a jerk. Yeah, he fired. I'm being a semantics type guy. But yeah, it was a sad day for him. And now he's having the time of his life. He's out fishing. He's touring the world. Obviously, I guess there's a report this week. He wants to get back into it. He's reborn. He's lost some weight. Wants to get back into coaching. So I'm sure we'll see him at some point, maybe in a coordinator job. But yeah, it's just amazing all these guys that this team goes through, and how many press conferences we've had over the last 5-10 years. It's pretty amazing. But
just think about the press conference we were at, almost a year ago today. I guess 3 or 4 days from now it will be a year ago when we got to go into the weight room, and it was this huge deal. I mean, it's a big effing deal, as Mark Davis put it, as Jon Gruden took over this franchise, and it seemed like this was going to be a big celebration year, and certainly got off the rails, and that it is what it is. We're not going to rehash everything that went wrong this year, but this was a weird season for you in your 9 years. Where does this kind of rank among the weirdest years you've covered?
Yeah, it was weird because there was no clear plan, like you mentioned earlier, in terms of what are we doing? Are we going to rebuild? And it was kind of the plan changed several times. The trade, obviously, Khalil Mack was a big one. Kind of affected everybody, not only the locker room, but in terms of fans and the media. And just it was a huge deal. And I just think that Gruden, like we said, kind of said some things that kind of talked in circles at times and couldn't really know what he was trying to do, but. And Carr hit bottom, came back. There's just a lot going on, injuries, so it's hard to say just where they're at in terms of, are they really anywhere near close to being back to being a contender for a playoff spot? Probably not. They're going to have to really overhaul this roster, that's the problem with this whole. Gruden today was on me about the effort again. He loves the effort and loves how much they're trying for him, but more than half these guys are going to be gone. Yep. So that doesn't mean anything. In terms of talent and getting guys to work in your scheme. So, I don't want to hear about effort in the NFL. I think the irony is that I don't think Gruden does either. I think Gruden's saying that, but in his
they're going to lead the league in effort next year is what he told us.
In his heart, he's got to realize that from the give up a franchise record, worst 467 points, worst ever in history of the franchise. And then it said the next day that Paul Gunther did a great job this year. I get it. There was a lot of talent in his roster, but that's an absurd statement. I don't care how good a job they thought he did. He can't say that. He just doesn't. I think Gruden down deep knows that. I think he's saying things he doesn't really mean at times. You can't look at this year and tell me you're really excited about the effort or the job that your coordinators did because you got blown out a lot. And they got yesterday. It was the worst defeat. Their story. I mean, Gruden last week talked about this rivalry with the Chiefs. This is our we hate them. They hate us. This is really This is their worst loss to the Chiefs in 43 years. And that's just all glossed over today because we hired a new GM. Colton Miller ran up the field, tackled some guy to preserve a 21-0 deficit. But these are things that I can't believe Gruden really believes. I mean, and Gruden and I haven't had a great year this year, and hopefully next year we get along a little better. But I just have a hard time with some of the things he says, and I wonder if he really means them.
Yeah. The funny thing is you tweeted right after that this is going to be, after that Colton Miller play, this is going to be Gruden's talking point. And I mean, it was the talking point after the game. It was Mayock's
it was today.
I was saying it was Mayock's talking point. It was Gruden's talking point again. I mean, that how many times this offseason are you going to hear about that play?
I mean, it's ridiculous. And it was a nice play.
But I mean, probably Colton Miller's
best
play of the year.
They were down 21-0, and so it prevented them from being down 28-0 in the second quarter. That's not good.
But then their defense was inspired and delivered a goal line stand.
I don't know, man. Again, it's been a long year. I definitely need a break. I'm probably jaded, but I just can't hear. I like a lot of these guys on defense. They're good guys, and I understand it's been a rough year, but I cannot hear about the effort or the blue collar lunch pail mentality when they're getting stomped every week. I know there's not. Other teams have injuries. Other teams have talent. They have guys emerge. That's what coaching is. You get guys in your practice squad like, Jason Kabinda, he's going to be the guy. And some teams have guys who emerge and take over a role and become good players. But this year, no one did that. I mean, the only guys that emerged really towards the end were Carl Joseph and Gary and Conley, who are both Reggie McKenzie guys, which I think is pretty ironic.
That were on the trade block.
Yeah, they were on the trade block. They both, I remember, like we talked about this last week, they're both, day of the trade deadline, both in the locker room, kind of worried, wondering what the hell is going to happen in the next hour or so. They're going to be going somewhere else. And now those are your two brightest spots in the defense. All the guys
those guys you weren't playing early in the season.
And like Terry Whitehead, again, I like him a lot.
He's got to hit the jugs machine this offseason.
He does. I like him a lot. I think he's a really good guy. He and I disagree where I think he did not play very well the first half of the year. I think he had 4 or 5 games where he played okay, and yesterday wasn't very good. But they gave him his bonus for next year already. I still don't understand how did he earn? Why? Why are we doing that? Why are they doing that? So I just think that there's an issue here with perception and with the talent that's on this roster that they have, and we'll see. Maybe it's the same with the coaching staff. Maybe Whitehead gets a mulligan. Maybe, you know what? If he has guys who are better around him, he makes more plays. I guess we'll find out. But I don't understand a lot of things that are being said as far as what it really means. I don't get I can't hear anymore about the effort. And Gruden definitely made a point. I asked him about it was then a different question. And he came at me about the effort. So I get it. He reads my stuff. He doesn't I keep questioning that, but I don't want to hear about the effort. I really don't.
Well, you are going to put in a big effort over the offseason, right? Big effort.
Nice segue.
Yeah, it's time to take a couple weeks off. Maybe we'll get together and do another podcast after you get back from the Senior Bowl. But time to
Alabama.
Alabama, baby.
And if you have any tips, hit me up on Twitter. I need some.
You never been to Alabama at all?
Nah, somehow I avoided.
I've been to Auburn.
No.
That's.
I was going to go last year to the Senior Bowl, but the last minute Gruden canceled, didn't go. So that was me. I've never gone in my 9 years. So the Chronicle wasn't going to pay for it, and I didn't really want to go. I didn't want to go either. I'll be honest. I don't want to go to the Senior. I mean, it's a long year, and usually it's not really. I mean, my example was Dennis Allen. I mean, raving about Seal Moore and Tyler Wilson. I'm like, I don't need to see that. I mean, God bless Tyler Wilson and Seal Moore, but that's what we're talking about, and I can skip the Senior Bowl. But this year, there's some good players. Josh Allen, the linebacker, is going to be there. So some guys definitely could be there for them in the top 10 picks or top 15, 20 picks. So we'll see what happens.
All right, well, everybody send over your Mobile, Alabama recommendations.
Nice.
I know Barrows has already told you about all the Waffle Houses you can hit up.
I like Waffle Houses. That's a good start. Yeah, I'm not big on collard greens, but I like Waffle Houses. And, I'm not huge on watching practice, but I do that a lot in my career. So I'll watch some guys practice and talk. I like talking to young kids. Obviously, these guys it's going to be the greatest moment of their lives. The NFL draft, and the chance to play the NFL, the dream they've had since they were kids. So that's always cool to see young guys, their excitement, and the chance to make an impression on the coaches. And like we mentioned, it's a fresh start for this coaching staff and for Mayock. They'll be excited just to kind of turn the page. And again, it's all about this draft. I mean, everything that happened this year, the Mack trade, the Cooper trade. It all becomes a lot better if they hit some home runs with this draft. If not, then it's all going to snowball and be a mess. So
Mayock's going to be a rock star there. The only thing is, I think before, if I remember right, some of the Senior Bowl coverage, you would have Mayock down on the field during practice, offering commentary. I don't think we can get that this year.
Nah, he's going to be a little more close to the vest.
Bummer.
Might be hard for him to not give his opinion. Hey, what do you think about this guy? Oh, I can't tell you.
It's going to be tough for him sometimes to close his lips on that. But
I know facial reactions. You can't ooh, you can't. It's got to be like deadpan. Like that was Reggie's strength. Reggie was sitting in the stands, and you couldn't tell if he was taking a nap or daydreaming or what he was doing, but he was watching.
All right, well, that'll wrap up the 2018 Raiders season here on State of the Nation. As I said, we'll be back probably in a few weeks after Vic gets back from the Senior Bowl, but appreciate all you guys listening all season long, and we'll have some more off-season coverage for you coming up.
Thanks a lot for all the feedback, all the good, nice, kind words you gave us, and it's been fun doing it this year, and we'll definitely do it next year also. So let's turn the page.
All right, on to 2019. Let's go get hammered tonight. New Year's Eve, baby.
I'm going to go to sleep. Yeah.
All right. Talk to you guys later.